We are a much better team than we came up and represented ourselves.
Good morning, Sac City. Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Drive presented by the Sac City Podcast. I am your host, the one and only Vinny Milani, joined as always by my best friend in the whole entire world. He is the Meauxiah. He is Aaron Meux. And below us, we have your boy, my boy, everybody's boy. He is AJ Johnson. It is a beautiful August 24th morning here in the city. The Fantasy Drive is about to kick off. We are giving you guys our breakouts and our busts today, as well as diving into Aaron's quarterback rankings, which, again, Aaron, it seems like your list just continues to be as fluid as can be to get everyone prepped and ready to have the best drafts possible to win those, to start your seasons off right. Obviously, you don't win at the draft, but you get off to the right start at the draft. You build that foundation. How goes today, Aaron?
Well, it's good until you use that cheesy ass line that's telling all these fantasy players the wrong lies. You do win at the draft. You want to be a good fantasy football player, win at the draft. Don't rely on waivers to get your victory. Don't rely on trades to get your victory. Win draft day, win your leagues, and win like the Meauxiah wins.
Yeah, something along those lines. Something along those lines.
And then hit him with the gritty on the way out. Hit him with the gritty with the Justin Jefferson eyes and get him going.
You are so hyped for too early in the morning of a show. AJ, what does your shirt say? What is this? What does your shirt say? I got good lip service.
Yeah, this is a fan favorite from back in the day, back in my bar days when I was working as a bartender. It's by Pucker, but no free ads. Yeah, stop it. Incorrect. No, honestly, this shirt could not be retired. It's guarded me some really good nights in Gainesville and Tallahassee. So I'd like to thank every sorority girl that ever enjoyed this shirt.
Oh my God. All right, well, let's get into your quarterback rankings here, Aaron. This is where we dive into your rankings that you have released. We've done the running backs 1 through 24. We've done the wide receivers 1 through 24. If you've missed those episodes, they are available on our YouTube page at Sac City Pod. We're diving into your quarterbacks. Here is your 1 through 12. Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray at number 3 over Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts rounding out top 6. That's where I want to start, Aaron, is Kyler Murray at 3 over guys like Mahomes and Lamar. What went into that thought process to put Kyler so high this year?
This year?
Well, you know what I mean? Over. It's not common. I have not seen a lot of lists with Kyler that high.
Since Kyler Murray was coming to the league, he's been number 6 quarterback, the number 3 quarterback, and then the number 10 quarterback last year, and he only played 14 games. So I think this is right on par with where he's been. He's a top 5 guy, and mainly because of the rushing yards. And he's had injuries, which has prohibited him from rushing the past couple of, or at least last year. I don't think he's getting worse. I just think he's kind of what he is. I think he's a safe top 5 guy. And then when you have a bad season, he falls to number 10. And I think that's what you want from a quarterback, is something that's safe, but also has the upside to be the number 1 overall player. And he has that upside with his rushing ability. Again, I'm not saying he's going to be better than Josh Allen, but does he have the upside? If at the end of the season, Kyler Murray throws for 4,500 yards and runs for 800, Are we surprised? No, I don't think we're surprised. I think we say that's Kyler Murray's ceiling.
So his rushing ability gives him the edge over Patrick Mahomes, who, I mean, you especially have been known on the show to give Patrick Mahomes the God status. Just in regular football, like in when it comes to regular football, Patrick Mahomes has had God status from you. So the rushing ability of Kyler gives him the edge over Mahomes this year.
Well, again, you're splitting hairs.
I want to split those hairs.
Patrick Mahomes has been 4 for the past 2 seasons. Where did I slate him at? I slated him at 4.
You put him at 4.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, whether it's 1, 2, 3 points, if you flip-flop Kyler Murray, Mahomes, am I going to hurt somebody? No. But I just put Kyler Murray at 3 because I do think that upside is a little bit more with the fact that he does run the ball designed. Those are design runs in the red zone. Mahomes is more, I'm going to run it when I have to. And he can, but it's not going to be consistent. So it's about weighing that upside versus weighing that floor. And not that Mahomes' floor is bad. I just think that Kyler Murray's floor is super high because he is going to run the football at some level. It may not be as much as we want him to, like it was last year or any of that stuff. But at the end of the day, he's had 300 yards. He's had more than 300 yards. I'm sorry. Mahomes is a 300-yard guy. Kyler Murray is more a 400, 500, 800 2 years ago, and a number of rushing touchdowns, which are huge. So we're talking about a guy that's going to throw almost 30 touchdowns and run for another 6, 7 touchdowns. It's just, again, it's a high floor, but a super high ceiling as well if he plays and like we expect that he can play.
Yeah. Yeah. AJ, before the show, when you were, or did you have anything on that? Did you want to?
I mean, kind of, because I know you're going to ask me what I feel and so on and so forth. And if you mind, I'll just go ahead and run off of where you were going. Wonderful audience. He was going to talk about how I do really like a lot of what you're going on here with these top 12 on your quarterbacks. But, as we talk about it more and, Vinny brings up Kyler Murray at number 3 and the reasonings that you gave. So what makes the big difference for Kyler Murray to a Lamar Jackson? Because that's also a guy who we can see who I think has the ability to possibly throw for 4,000 yards. And I know he hasn't done it that often. We know he has the ability to run for 1,000 yards and quite possibly 10 or more touchdowns. So, you talk about the upside, the high floor, the high ceiling. I think Lamar Jackson has the same ability. So what's the difference for you between a Kyler Murray and a Lamar Jackson, skipping over a Pat Mahomes in this sense?
I don't think Lamar Jackson can throw for 4,000 yards. He's never even been close to throwing for 4,000 yards. And that's even when he was the number 1 overall player in fantasy. He only had 3,000 yards. He's never thrown more than 3,100 yards. That's alarming to me from a passing standpoint. Not that he can't do it from a physical talent standpoint.
I was going from the optimism part.
From an offensive standpoint, that offense will not allow him to do that. Number 1, they don't have the weapons on the outside, so they don't go deep very often. They don't spread the ball around like that. It's tight end, it's dink, it's dunk, it's running backs, and that never really equates to big yardage numbers. But he has the upside of obviously running for 1,100, 1,200 yards as well, which is why he's able to get to the number 1 overall fantasy player in a year where he does throw 39 touchdowns. So I think, again, it's just about the floor. The floor for Kyler Murray is so high. Lamar Jackson's floor has been last year 15, and I know he was hurt. Give him 4 more games, 5 more games, whatever it is. He's been number 29 before in 16 games in 2018. His floor is far less than what Kyler Murray's floor is, in my opinion. Again, outside of the 1 year Lamar Jackson has finished number 1 overall, which was a great year, MVP year, he's never been better than 10th. So that floor is bothersome to me, number 1, because of injuries, number 2, because of the passing offense that they have in Baltimore, and then number 3, with just the lack of weapons that he has on the outside. I'm sorry, I'll take an A.J. Green, I'll take a Rondale Moore, I'll take a Hollywood Brown and a DeAndre Hopkins over just a Rashad Bateman on the outside, and I'm not sure who that next guy is going to be. I think the floor is higher for Kyler, which is why Kyler gets the nudge for me. It's why Mahomes is ahead of Lamar, to be honest. Mahomes is he's going to throw the ball a ton, but if Lamar Jackson had the weapons on the outside and was going to throw the ball more, then Lamar Jackson would probably be the number 2 quarterback in the NFL in fantasy. But he doesn't have those same privileges that a Patrick Mahomes has or a Kyler Murray has.
No.
I got one more.
Sure.
I'm gonna just go at you. There's another one in these top 12s. I don't know why I'm just killing it for Vinny. I'm hype. I'm also hype on a very more mellow level. In your top 12, there's a guy that many people are very hype about. You have him slated at number 11, and that's one Trey Lance. What do you see? Do you think he can outperform this 11? And what makes you confident that he is a top 12 quarterback this season?
It really comes down to Jalen Hurts. He is Jalen Hurts-esque in his abilities and what he's able to do. And we've seen what Jalen Hurts was able to do from just a rushing standpoint. And again, I will always say this, rushing reigns supreme as the quarterback position in fantasy. If you can throw and run, you are going to be privileged. You are going to put up fantasy numbers. Jalen Hurts last year was the number 9 quarterback overall, and he threw for 3,100 yards again. 16 touchdowns. Why was he so good? Because he also had 700 yards on the ground and a number of touchdowns rushing. As a matter of fact, he had 10. Trey Lance is going to score in the red zone. That read option in the red zone is going to be what the 49ers rely upon. He is going to be a beneficiary of an offense that Kyle Shanahan's going to say, you go be you. And he has a big arm. He can go down the field, but he also has that rushing ability. I will take, again, he's a high floor guy. Not a lot of risk there, in my opinion, outside of injury. I think that Trey Lance is a very safe quarterback to take. And it might be a fringe quarterback 1, borderline quarterback 2. But if you're a guy that's saying, you know what, I'm not going to go out and draft a quarterback in the first 8 rounds. And then you were getting to those guys who are like, I don't know. It's kind of a guy that could be really good at the borderline number 1. I'd rather just wait and take Trey Lance later. So I just think that Trey Lance has immense upside if he does throw the ball the way he's been throwing it at times. But a very high floor. And again, I'm always going to tell you, I'm big on high floor guys. I don't like boom or bust players. If I know what I'm going to get from you, then you can't surprise me. And I think that's an expectation thing that I like. And that's why I have him ahead of guys like Russell Wilson, who, yeah, he's been great in fantasy. He's in a new system, and I don't know what that offense is going to look like. I don't know how much they throw the football. And I honestly feel safer with Trey Lance this year than I do Russell Wilson, which is crazy to think and crazy to say, but I really do. And from a fantasy perspective, again, I always have to clarify because we are a regular football show as well. But from a fantasy perspective, is it absurd to say Jalen Hurts is better than Russell Wilson? No. But yeah, we rank him so much higher than we do a Russell Wilson. It's just about opportunity and the amount of legs, the amount of times they're going to use their legs. And I think it's going to be big for Trey Lance a lot. He's actually growing on me more and more, to be honest. I've moved him up quite a bit over the past couple of weeks. I just think they're going to use him a lot in the running game.
You have been flip-flopping a lot with your rankings here, adjusting a lot. And one of the adjustments you made today was bumping down Joe Burrow to 9 and having Tom Brady at 7. What went into moving down Joe Burrow and bumping up not even just Tom Brady, but also Dak Prescott ahead of Burrow?
Oh, I was like, why is it not in order? I'll be honest, that's a mistake. Well, if you look at the order it's in, the numbers are just wrong. I was doing this kind of fast.
So why? Okay, so now
I actually have Joe Burrow at 7, Tom Brady at 8, Dak Prescott at 9, Aaron Rodgers at 10, Trey Lance at 11. I'm like, what are you referring to? It's just don't look at the numbers, look at the order of the player. When you're moving around numbers, I just shift the name to that number, and it just got wonky.
Yeah. Okay, well then let's go on
to
the
back. A good producer would have noticed that pre-show and asked me about it.
Are you fucking shitting me right now? The guy who can't spell Matthew Stafford right in the doc is coming at me.
That's my point. Of a bitch. That's again my point is I'm going really fast through it. My guy is supposed to check that. Like, you're the producer, man. You're supposed to check those things. I work in a station. You know what our producers do?
So if I were to,
it's your TV show, right? It's your show.
If I were to see number 9 by Joe Burrow and then say, okay, but he's actually the 7th on this, and then I switch that, and I assume that that's what you're doing, then I would have been wrong. Then I would have been wrong for
an ass out of yourself when you assume. All you had to do is send me a text. Hey, Aaron, this is what's happening. Couldn't Could you not?
You are a real piece of work.
I'm
for
asking
just
you.
Trying to throw this on.
No, I'm owning my mistake.
You
I'm
are
telling you that I made the
something
mistake.
else.
I'm telling you I made the mistake. I'm admitting
Correct.
that. But
Correct.
you are the
Don't
producer of the show, yes?
Don't throw.
No, are you not
sir.
the producer of the show?
I am, and I go.
Let me ask you this question.
Here,
No,
sir.
we're going down this rabbit hole. If you're the producer of the show, say you're running a TV show and you're the producer, and I have a package, and my package, in the middle of my package, it says, "Fuck you, bitch," on live television, and you run that, and you didn't check that, and you run that. Are you not going to be held responsible at some level for that?
That is a similar situation to you spelling Matthew Stafford as Matthew Stanford in the doc that I did go and change. But
so you
have
picking
in
and
your
choosing
rankings,
what you fix now.
Your rankings,
okay,
or your rankings, and how would I know?
Because that's an error. Numbers don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 7, 8, Vinny. So there's got to be a question.
You've been fluid with your rankings. So how am I
can't be fluid with the number system, Vinny. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 7, 8. That's not a thing. So there's a question to be answered there.
Apparently, you can be fluid with the number system because you have Joe Burrow at 9, but he's really 7, but number 9. Let me just see if hopefully 13 through 24 is right for you with Matthew Stanford coming in at 13, Kirk Cousins at 14, Derek Carr at 15, Justin Fields at 16. What name from the back half of this quarterback list? Because these are all guys that you're most likely going to be able to find on your waiver wire, or maybe you punted the quarterback position and want to go for a late round flyer on one of these guys. What's the most interesting name to you from this 13 through 24 list, Aaron?
Yeah, before it was Deshaun Watson, obviously, when it was the 6 games, but he's been moved down a lot, as you can see, because 11 games is just too much. It's too much of the season. So unless you're drafting him as your quarterback 2 and then using him weeks 12, 13 beyond, it's not very interesting there to me. To me, it's Jameis Winston. And I know we kind of do this every year after he's thrown for 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions, but in an offense where it's usually pretty quarterback friendly in New Orleans when they have a good one. And I think Jameis Winston is a good one. You have a bunch of weapons in Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, if he's healthy, Chris Olave, the young rookie, Jarvis Landry. And he looked good at the beginning of last year. It wasn't fantasy good, but it was like, okay, there's something there good. And I think that he's a guy that could creep up. I don't think he can get into the back end of the top 12 just because of the volume. I think they run the ball a lot and they have a really good defense, but I do think he can move up from that 17 or 18 spot that I have him to maybe a borderline and higher end quarterback 2. I think he could end up with better numbers than guys like Derek Carr, who's never been a really big fantasy asset. And then some of the other guys that I have ahead of him that may not produce what we think they're going to produce. The Justin Fields of the world, maybe Russell Wilson slides a little bit. Matthew Stafford, I know he had a great year last year, but he still doesn't run the ball. He just still doesn't move or anything like that. So it's all predicated on the pass game. And the Rams have tendency to be they want to run the football and build off of that. So who knows how many touchdowns Matthew Stafford actually throws this year. I think Jameis Winston can be in that mix, but I think that's the guy I'm most intrigued by as far as if you're taking a late round flyer, maybe it's a guy like that.
What makes you opposed to putting Derek? Obviously, we're big on rushing quarterbacks, and Derek Carr is not known to be a rushing quarterback. Is that what keeps you away from bumping him up higher? But because you add in a guy like Devontae Adams to your team, that's going to make at least your real life football value go up. In fantasy, you have him outside your top 12. What's making you hesitant to? Because I've been a guy. I honestly, in the pre-draft process back in like the end of July, I was like, man, I'm going to draft Derek Carr at late and be able to get him at a steal, and he's going to be able to produce. He's going to be a top 12 quarterback. But as I progress through the offseason, I'm like, something's not right with this Derek Carr. No one's ranking him in the top 12. What is wrong with Derek Carr?
You can't. And I'm going to say it again. Look at the quarterbacks. Just look at that first top 10. Just look at the top 10. And outside of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, who doesn't run the football? Who doesn't have the ability to be mobile? Like that's the problem. It's the ability to be mobile. And then when you get outside that top 10, you start talking about a Russell Wilson, who's not really the running quarterback anymore, but he does have that capability, which is why he's my number 11. Like it's still there. But then you look at the guys, Matt Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr. Those three quarterbacks from a pure passing standpoint would be in the top 10. But the game has changed. The quarterback position in fantasy football has changed, and you cannot be a top guy in fantasy football if you do not add anything with your legs. I truly believe that. Outside of the Tom Brady's who's throwing 680 passes a year and 50 touchdowns, you just can't. So unless you're going to get one of those special years from Matt Stafford, from Kirk Cousins, or from Derek Carr, they're going to be right there borderline back end one, high twos. I just don't think that the ceiling's not there.
That's fair. That's fair. AJ, did you have any other burning questions to ask Aaron before we move on?
It actually broke my heart because, like, the one place I was going to go on that back half was Jameis Winston.
I know you love Jameis. That's why I brought him up.
That's not even why. It's not even about the love. I
love him and Chris Olave, and they have Jameis Winston, Olave babies. And
you want to know what I love about Jameis Winston? I love his workouts. Those things, I could probably go down a YouTube rabbit hole of Jameis Winston
until he gets beat up by one of those bags when he's running through the little.
I know it's probably one of the floppy dumbbells he's working out with.
Jameis is a fool. I do like Jameis though. Yeah. I'm happy he's back and back at practice and
yeah. I mean, and I think the conversation would have went football heavy, not fantasy football heavy anyway. So I think from a fantasy point, he's in the right spot. And, he'll be right there on the waiver wire if he starts to prove people wrong. And we'll look at it.
I know you don't do anything past 24, Vinny, but I did want to mention my number 27 quarterback, who's number 85 in the players top 100. Mm-hmm. He's my number 27 quarterback in fantasy, and that's Mack Jones. Just wanted to point that out.
Unbelievable.
He's 85 in all of the NFL in all positions, but he's number 27 in fantasy.
You put you put him over Marcus, or not Marcus, but you put him over Carson Wentz though.
Yeah, Carson Wentz is a turd. But listen,
I would have.
I thought you were going to mention somebody that moved way up, and maybe you didn't pay attention to my rankings before when I had him in the stock for 3.5 weeks. But Baker Mayfield shot way up, and I don't know if you noticed that he was like 26 or 27 at the time, and now he's all the way up to 19. That is another sneaky name that people should watch out for. He had a good season a couple of years ago. He's on a team that can produce some offensive points. And you get that ball in DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey's hands, some good things can happen for you fantasy-wise. So maybe another quarterback 2 sleeper. You throw a flyer out there late, and maybe he has one of those special years that gets him in the top 15, and you can celebrate that. So watch out for Baker Mayfield as well.
Wow, the tables have turned on Baker Mayfield. I remember just talking about him, and we gave him what he deserved back in the day. We said this on the show last night or yesterday. And now it's just like his value is just creeping up, and he's making the Panthers value creep up, and he's making his fantasy value creep up. But that does it though for our rankings review for the quarterbacks. Again, we've done the quarterbacks, we've done the running backs, we've done the wide receivers. All will be available on our YouTube page at the Sack City Pod. After this quick commercial break, we are going to get into our breakouts and our busts.
This season preview is brought to you by Manscaped's brand new Ultra Premium 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. This luxurious lather cleanses and nourishes in just one step. Using coconut water, green tea, and aloe, this non-greasy daily formula is naturally hydrating and rich in antioxidants to revitalize the look and feel of your hair. So head on over to manscaped.com and use the promo code SACCITY for 20% off and free worldwide shipping. The new Ultra Premium 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner from Manscaped. Take care of hair everywhere.
Everywhere? Everywhere. There it is. All right, let's get into our breakouts and our busts. We're going to start off with the breakouts. AJ, who do you have breaking out this season?
Yeah. Fan favorite of the show. We all really enjoy this guy. And honestly, if you're listening to fantasy communities around the world, excuse me, you're probably hearing this name a lot of a guy that everyone is expecting to have a good season. And that's Buffalo Bills wide receiver Gabe Davis. I think he is primed for a great season in football and in fantasy. You're talking about a guy who last year had a great breakout and a guy that somebody that Josh Allen really trusted. The one that everyone points to is that playoff game where he had 4 touchdowns, 200 yards on 8 receptions. But it's bigger than that. We mentioned how he's one of the guys that he's targeted for the red zone over and over again. And you look at him, you may worry because if you look at his stats, he's never been targeted over 65 times in a season. But now you're looking at guys with Emmanuel Sanders gone and Cole Beasley gone. That's about 30% of a target share that has now been vacated. And while there's still a Stephon Diggs, and while you added a Jamison Crowder, and we like what Isaiah McKenzie can do, we are sure, I don't want to say sure, we're not going to speak in definites, but a lot of signs are pointing towards Gabe Davis being a benefactor of that target share being opened up. Just look at what Josh Allen did when he was in a pickle and had to throw the ball and release it quickly. Who did he find? On a moment's notice, it was Gabe Davis. And even with not being targeted more than 65 times in a season, he's always been efficient with that for the most part. I think about the games he had, five receptions, but it was 85 and 2 touchdowns, or a game where he didn't get a touchdown on 3 receptions, but it was 105 yards. So he always finds a way to make something happen when the ball's in his hand. And I think if he's getting more opportunities this season, you're likely to see him have, if he doubles it, you're talking about maybe 70 receptions and close to 1,000 to 1,100 yards. So I like Gabe Davis to have a nice breakout season. And if you can get him at the right price, you should do it, be happy, and look to win some leagues.
Yeah, Gabe Davis is, I mean, that's one of the guys that, like, it seems like the fantasy community is just all aboard the Gabe Davis hype train, and rightfully so. I mean, he is efficient with what he has gotten, and he's got the potential to be something special and a league winner. Aaron, you high on Gabe Davis?
What kind of question is that? I told you about Gabe Davis a while back. This is a guy that didn't even play. Like, we're talking about somebody that didn't play a lot of snaps, and now all of a sudden he's taken over the permanent wide receiver 2 role in that offense, and an offense that's going to score a lot of points. I don't say I'm all in, but I'm all in. He's been one of the league leaders in red zone targets. Again, not playing very many snaps. I believe he was sitting at less than 50% of the snaps many times last year. A lot of it was 40%, 20%, 30% of snaps. So he wasn't even on the field, and yet he's still been able to be a guy that's been efficient in the red zone and get some touchdowns. When you're scoring 6-7 touchdowns a year and you're not even playing, and now you're getting on the field for 80% of the snaps, which I assume he will going forward, you're going to be a guy that is able to produce, and in an offense, again, with Josh Allen, who is unreal. I think people forget Gabe Davis is also only 23 years old. So he was really young when he came into the league. He was only 20. This guy's only 23 years old, entering year 3, and he is now the number 2 target there. I do actually have more concern now than I did before, because I think Isaiah McKenzie is going to be a real threat this year. They like him a lot, and it's been him who's been playing all the first-team reps in preseason, not Jamison Crowder. I don't think Jamison Crowder is a factor anymore. I think it's Isaiah McKenzie, and I think he is going to get that an enhanced version of that Cole Beasley role. But Gabe Davis is going to score a ton because there's enough to go around for all 3 of them. It's an offense that's going to be high-powered. Gabe Davis is creeping up my rankings. He was in the 30s before. I believe I have him at like 29 now. By the time the season starts and after week 1, he could be easily in my top 20.
I also think he's embraced his red zone role too, because not only is he's picked up as the second top 2 receiver for them, he's gotten big. He's sitting over about 230 on his pounds, and you're looking at his size. He's making sure he's got the body to fight and tussle in the red zone, so he can make sure he's getting some of these catches on these opportunities, as he was already doing when he wasn't as big. So I think that's another thing that kind of steps in his favor as well.
Gabe Davis is 230 right now.
227. I round up.
He must have gained some weight. That boy, that's big. That's David Boston. I'd be worried if I were you. That was like David Boston. That dude.
Yeah, but if you're talking 227 a gut, sure. If you're talking 227 mass and
I don't like 230 on Gabe Davis.
Where'd you get 230 from?
Well, if I have to pull it back up, let's see here. It was a conversation from his agent talking about the work he's put in and the weight and the muscle mass that he's put on. got him up to around 227 in his last workout. So,
Pro Football Reference has him at 210, but that might not be updated. That might not be updated. I don't know.
It does talk about there are articles that are talking about he's now weighs 227. I
get him be a big boy.
Maybe he'll shred it. Maybe he'll cut it.
I don't.
Maybe they don't like that either.
I don't like that.
Well, my breakout candidate is another guy that has a similar, pretty much almost the same dynamic as Gabe Davis. Not a lot of opportunities, but making the most of the opportunities. My breakout candidate this year is Allen Lazard, the wide receiver from the Green Bay Packers. He was 11th in the NFL in red zone touchdowns last season, only had 60 targets, still managed to get 8 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers is now without Davante Adams. We are well aware of that. We are well aware of the opportunities that are opening up. And it's either Allen Lazard, you want to throw AJ, you wanted to throw in Randall Cobb and Sammy Watkins and those guys last night for some odd reason and not mention Allen Lazard. But over the last 5 weeks of last season, Allen Lazard finished as the wide receiver 15. And last season, this is the biggest stat that I got from Allen Lazard. That makes me really think that Aaron Rodgers is going to trust him and continue to use him and him be the number one wide receiver on this team. Last season, Allen Lazard converted 46.7% of his targets into first downs. That ranked 9th among wide receivers with at least 50 targets. So this guy is converting. He's making plays when given the opportunity. He's a guy that Aaron Rodgers can trust. And we all know that rookie wide receivers with Aaron Rodgers normally takes time for them to develop. And we are all very high on Romeo Dobbs, a.k.a. Romeo Dubs. But it's going to take time for him to develop into a guy that Aaron Rodgers can trust. Until then, it's going to be Allen Lazard for this season and possibly for years to come. He is my breakout candidate this year. He's going to be an absolute stud. We're bumping up Gabe Davis all this much, but you still see Allen Lazard as the wide receiver 40 going off the board. So Allen Lazard, breakout year.
Hard to say anything about that. I think a lot of people are on that side of the fence. I know we're excited about those young receivers, but Allen Lazard is somebody that obviously Aaron Rodgers trusted. So I don't see why it's something that can't happen. I'd be disappointed if it didn't, to be honest, more so than anything, because I think that's a guy that we expect to be better. I'm still reluctant to put him into my wide receiver rankings high. Like, he's still going to sit at a wide receiver 3-4 for me until I see he can go out and give me 1,000 and 10 touchdowns or something, and then I can start be like, okay, now he trusts him. But I think if you're going to look for a breakout candidate on a team, you're looking for a guy that, number one, gets opportunity. Number two, that has the trust of his quarterback. And we've seen that trust develop over the past couple of years with Allen Lazard playing kind of second fiddle to Davante Adams. And now he steps in and he takes over that wide receiver 1 role. And I don't think, like I said, there's any threat really to that role right now, unless a Romeo Dubs, and that's right, I'm going to say Dubs, continues to play the way he's playing, and then you see that chemistry develop with Aaron Rodgers. But there's going to come a time in a game, Aaron Rodgers is going to do something because he's the smartest man in the room. Romeo Dobbs is not going to be ready for it. He's going to break wrong. Yeah. It's going to be picked off, and Aaron Rodgers is going to look at him. He's going to be like, you mother, and he's going to be so mad because he got an interception on his record that he will go away from you. That's how Aaron Rodgers is. He will go away from you, and he'll go, Allen Lazard, Allen Lazard, Allen Lazard, Allen Lazard, and he'll look over at you and be like, that's why I throw to him, because he'll make every play that's supposed to be made because he knows now where he's supposed to be because he's been with Aaron Rodgers.
So I mean, to me, the more I think about this, the more we talk about this, you are very high. Where do you have Gabe Davis? I mean, is Gabe Davis your wide receiver?
29.
Okay, so, and right, where would Allen Lazard be?
30, I think I have him at 38, 37, 38.
So you're talking about you want to see it from him, although we have seen pretty much the same amount of production from both Gabe Davis and Allen Lazard. Gabe Davis being the younger wide receiver, maybe that's why you give him the edge. But we've seen very similar production between the two wide receivers, and yet, and this is my problem with people talking about Gabe Davis not giving any really credit. Allen Lazard almost is a sleeper in my opinion, not just a breakout candidate, but a big time sleeper. But the thing is you talk about Gabe Davis and his production. He makes the most of his opportunities. Same thing with Allen Lazard. The difference between these two wide receivers now is Allen Lazard has and is a strong candidate to be the wide receiver 1 for this team. Stephon Diggs is still there in Buffalo, okay? Josh Allen is still going to make plays with his legs. I know
a wide receiver 1 for a team doesn't always equate to a wide receiver 2 in fantasy or a wide receiver even 3 in fantasy. We assume that because of Aaron Rodgers.
But we're talking about the opportunities here. The opportunity
to your point,
to Lazard.
That's what I was going to say, the difference. You asked about the difference. Allen Lazard has been playing 80% of the snaps last year. Gabe Davis was playing 40% of snaps, and they got the same production. That's scary when you talk about production standpoint, because I'm like, okay, give Gabe Davis 80% of the snaps every week, week in and week out. He's already producing 6-7 touchdowns, and that we've already seen that production, and he was not playing. Like, if you go look at Gabe Davis's percentage of plays, I'm talking games where it was like 20%, 25%, 34%, 28%. He played over 50% of the snaps towards the end of the season, and this was his production. 5 for 43, a touchdown. 5 for 85, 2 touchdowns. He had 3 for 40, and then 3 for 39 the last 2 weeks of the season. I don't remember how much Josh Allen was in that or not. But when you compare that to what Allen Lazard played all year long, it was over 50% in almost every game he played. Actually, it was over 50% in every game he played.
It was, yeah. Last season he was around in the 70% range for snap percentage. But I mean, you also have to consider the fact that, and this is really not an argument to compare, but I think both these guys, and this was not a shot to AJ's breakout, but Allen Lazard, I do think, needs to be getting a little bit more attention. And honestly, don't give him attention. Let him fall in drafts. I will gladly take Allen Lazard as the wide receiver 40 and be completely happy with that. But
I think there's a couple of reasons why. And it's not just the one that I brought up. I think it's also about the ability. And we have to remember Gabe Davis's ability coming out of school, not only as an NFL player, but he was highly touted coming out of UCF as a player that was a playmaker. And I know he was only a 4th round pick and stuff like that, but it's not a guy, it's a guy we knew. Allen Lazard kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so we question the talent as well. This guy was, I believe, undrafted, if I'm not mistaken.
Allen Lazard was originally a Jacksonville Jaguar.
But he was undrafted, right?
Yeah, correct. He was an undrafted wide receiver, yeah.
So an undrafted guy, you know already the comparisons now. You don't have the ability of a Gabe Davis.
Yeah.
And Gabe Davis is 23. And so they look at the upside, and I think that's where you see a lot of why you would rank somebody higher in that situation. But I'm with you. I actually do think Allen Lazard is going to have a really good year. But I don't know that equates to a wide receiver 1 year. Like, I'll tell you this, I expect close to 1,000 yards, like 8 or 9 touchdowns. And that's a great season for Allen Lazard. But I don't think it's going to be like Devontae Adams gone. Here's 1,400 from Allen Lazard plus 12.
Yeah, no, I don't by any means think of that. But I mean, you look at his pass production, and then I do see it a 1,000-yard season. And with the fact that he was as consistent as he was in the red zone last year, and as high as he was in the red zone last year, now potentially getting the Devontae Adams role in the red zone is going to boost up his touchdowns. You can possibly see double-digit touchdowns and over 1,000 yards from an Allen Lazard, which hence the breakout season. Aaron, who is your breakout candidate?
Yeah, I had 2 as we kind of were going through here. I'm going to stick with 1. You guys both went wide receivers, and I think that's lame. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you guys. That's lame because there's a ton of good wide receivers. All these guys can be breakout.
Wait. At least AJ didn't pick another tight end.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for that. He'd have been like, I
had a good guy.
Isaiah Likely or some stupid chump like, Anyways, you know what? Speaking of Isaiah Likely, I'm going to go to the Baltimore Ravens.
You said it.
And I'm going to go J.K. Dobbins. And I know it's more like a comeback player, breakout-esque, because his rookie year he did well, but he was limited at first and he came out in the second. I think J.K. Dobbins, with the news of Gus Edwards going on the NFLI, the list, he's going to miss at least 4 games. I think J.K. Dobbins, everything pointing to he's going to play. He's talking like he's going to play. I think this is a good spot for him, man. I think he's been kind of quiet. His draft status has kind of just hovered around what it is. It's been right around running back 20-something. And I think people are a little reluctant to take that leap of faith because of the fact that he's coming off an ACL. I think in that offense, he could be play a big part. I think it's somebody that he was very highly productive with touchdowns this first year out of the backfield. He can catch passes. He's a versatile back. He can carry the load. He's right around running back 24 now, but I think that could easily get up to running back 16, 17, 18 on any given day. And I think if he's healthy enough, I think that's where he's going to end up. So for me, the breakout is more the comeback player building off of that first year that we saw, which we thought that year two, which was last year, was going to be that breakout. And I think it happens this year.
What about Lamar? What about the people who what about the people who will say that Lamar Jackson will eat into J.K. Dobbins' production and bump him back?
Lamar Jackson was there 2 years ago, and he ran for 800 yards on only 130 carries, and he was splitting time with Gus Edwards and had 9 touchdowns, not to mention another 120 in pass yards. I mean, that's what I would tell him. I don't know what that means.
That's what I want. That's what I wanted to hear. I know that there are people out there that are hesitant on J.K. Dobbins. Okay.
So I think it's fair if Gus Edwards is there, because now you have a 3-headed monster. But how many carries are Lamar going to get? Like if Gus Edwards was there and you're giving 10 to Gus Edwards and 10 to Lamar, then yeah, there's not much, there may be 10 left for J.K. Dobbins. But those carries that Gus Edwards are getting is gone. And I'm not saying they're going to rush J.K. in there right away and say, here's 25 carries. But if he's healthy enough to play, he's going to see the bulk of the carries. And again, maybe it's not week 1. Maybe they rest him until week 2 or 3 until he's fully back right and he's got some action. But whenever he comes back in, I'm confident that when he steps on the field, he will be the main back. And if he's the main back in the Baltimore offense, he will be effective. There's no debate in my mind. We saw Latavius Murray last year when he was the main back be effective. So that offense is just built on the run. Lamar Jackson's going to get his. I don't think there's any question about that. But I'll take a J.K. Dobbins at his age, being able to bounce back and carry the load in Baltimore as long as he's healthy.
Don't disrespect Mike Davis.
Let me ask you this question. Looking around those guys, like Miles Sanders or J.K. Dobbins, could be a toss-up, right? Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, Elijah Mitchell, J.K. Dobbins, Damian Harris, like all those guys are at some level risky plays. Cam Akers, Elijah Mitchell, obviously injury concerns, Miles Sanders, injury concerns. That's kind of who I have ranked above J.K. Dobbins right now. It would not shock me if J.K. Dobbins, when we're all said and done, we're talking about him and he's in that 17, 18, 19 spot as an RB2, which for what we're drafting him as, I think that's a perfect spot. I don't know where he's going in drafts right now, but as the RB24, I imagine he's, I don't know,
fifth. He is going 50. He's going with the 50th pick.
So
what,
that's
fifth
round?
What?
Fifth round?
Yeah. AJ Dillon over J.K. Dobbins?
Right now, I would have to say yes, but that's mainly because of the philosophy I think that Green Bay Packers were going to run, which is why I'm also tempering my expectations on Lazard, because I think I'm still sold that Aaron Jones is going to be the leading receiver in the Packers.
Yeah, I actually thought one of y'all would bring that up in that whole argument, and nobody did. And I was like,
I didn't, because I didn't want to downplay. I didn't want to downplay what I do think Lazard can do and will do.
Right.
But I think Aaron Jones leads that team in receptions and receiving yards at the end of the year right now. Until I see game 1 and how they're used, that's kind of my mindset. If they don't use them that way, then so be it. I was wrong. But right now, I think A.J. Dillon's that primary ball carrier. I think Aaron Jones is that 5 to 7 carries, but gets 8 to 9 targets a game. And out of the backfield, that's going to do wonders for them.
Yeah. I like our breakout picks, but where there's breakouts, there has to be busts. AJ, who do you have as a bust?
Well, you guys wanted a tight end, but it's not coming from me.
Okay.
So I actually have a little bit of surprise for you guys. I'm going home, and I am taking the running back out of Atlanta, Cordero Patterson. Great year last season. Enjoyed it. Was a lot of fun. Was happy someone finally used him and got production out of him the way he always thought he could be. But if you're expecting to see an 1,100 yards from scrimmage season from Cordero Patterson again, I do not think that's likely. I mean, you're talking about this happening at age 31. You're talking about last season, he had carries, which more than doubled his career high in carries. And it was his second highest amount of targets and, if I'm not mistaken, receptions that he's had. I will double check that before I'm wrong. on the reception part of things. But I know it's right up there, 2 or 3. And then you think about him benefiting from once the fact that Calvin Ridley was no longer going to be a factor for the rest of the season. Well, they were like, well, this is the guy who's going to be our offense, and that's what we did. And then we threw in a little bit of Olamide Zaccheaus. Coming in this season, they drafted what they consider to be weapons and what we expect to be a decent amount of them. Drake London is going to be used quite well on the other side of Kyle Pitts. Tyler Algier, I saw a little bit of what they're hoping to do with him in the second preseason game, and I think they are going to give him a little bit more run. And as I've said, I believe Tyler Algier is going to come and take over that backfield eventually, which will allow Cordero Patterson to, obviously he's going to get a couple rushes here and there, but I think he's going to play a lot more wide receiver, and I don't know that he's going to have the same output that he could have had from last year. I'm not saying that I think Cordero Patterson is not going to have a season. I don't think he's not going to be usable. But what I am saying is I don't think he's going to get anywhere near where he was last year. And I think if you're thinking that, if you're somebody who is ready to, in a keeper league keep or more in a redraft league, you're trying to get him above like round 8. I don't know that I do that. I think he should temper expectations on Cordero Patterson and look some other places. Always a deep silence after my takes. Always a deep silence.
No, because you when you wrapped it up appropriately. I don't know, everything you said about him is spot on. Like, there's nothing really to argue there. I agree with every point. I would say I don't know that. First of all, the people that are drafting him that early are crazy, but I would assume he's not going that high. I think people are skeptical. I think people are skeptical of him. So I'm not. I don't know if. I guess I don't know if I would label him a bust, right? Like, I think where you're drafting him, you're probably expecting a certain amount of fantasy points, and I think he could probably give you that from where he's at. But if you're talking about busting compared to what maybe some people expected from last year, then yeah, I don't think he's going to touch or come anywhere near what he did last year. I do agree.
RB 30, 77th pick.
That's about right. I mean, that's what I see Cordero Patterson is a flex play. And again, maybe he'll have games where he booms a couple of times and you're like, oh, yep, there's that guy again. But consistently, I think the biggest disadvantage for Cordero Patterson is not that he's older. It's not that he's on Atlanta. It's that he lost Matt Ryan. I think that losing Matt Ryan changes the way defenses are going to play Atlanta, because despite how well Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder have looked in the preseason, defenses are not going to be scared of him, which means they're going to try to stop the run and make the quarterbacks beat them. And I think by doing that, then you're focusing on guys like Cordero Patterson and saying, okay, let's stop Kyle Pitts, stop Cordero Patterson, make the rookies beat us, make Drake London go out and beat us. And I think that's really what impacts him more than just being older or, having a breakout year last year.
Yeah. I've also going with a running back as a bust, but much, much, much higher. And Aaron, I actually just looked at your list. You have this running back at 12 on your list. So you have him as an RB1, who I'm considering a bust. So I would assume we're about to throw hands. But it's James Conner. I think James Conner is going to be the bust this year. Obviously, you can it's right there. The touchdown regression is something that you have to consider. In the last 20 seasons, we've seen 13 running backs score 18 or more touchdowns. Todd Gurley and Alvin Kamara are the only two backs to not see regression the following season. They brought in Darrell Williams for a reason. And I'm not saying he's going to be productive in fantasy. I'm not saying you're going to be hearing a whole bunch of him, but James Conner has not played a full season in his entire career. He is known to get hurt at some point in the season. I'm not guaranteeing an injury, but it's definitely possible. They lost Chase Edmonds. They bring in Darrell Williams to spell James Conner, to take some of the workload off of him. I think the touchdown regression comes in. You also have to consider the fact that this offensive line ranked 31st in the NFL, according to PFF, shout out PFF, in run blocking. So their offensive line is not good in terms of run blocking. James Conner's touchdown regression is going to come. And let's look at this. If he doesn't have the same year in touchdowns, last year he averaged a career low 3.7 yards per carry in his first year with the Cardinals, and posted just 50.1 rush yards per game. He doesn't get the yardage. The touchdown regression is going to come. I see a bust season coming from a guy who, Aaron, you have as an RB1 this season.
Well, yeah. I think because his floor is too high not to have him as an RB1. It's crazy because you make valid arguments, but those same valid arguments I would use as to say why he is going to be fine and not be a bust, because he did all of that without running the ball efficiently, without being effective on the ground. And yeah, there is some touchdown regression, but sure, I always say you should count for touchdown regression. Every player, I don't care how good they are. So if he had 15 last year, you split the difference, give him 11, 10. I think he can get that much in an Arizona offense that's pretty qualified to score points. He was RB5. So dropping him from RB5 to RB12 is regression. And I think that's where I'm at. Like, he finished in the top 5 as running backs last year. I don't see that again. I think there is some regression. But regression to fall out of the top 12 is a steep hill at the running back position. And I do think it comes down to games played. He's had some injuries over the course of his career, but he hasn't had season-ending injuries. He's played 10 games at least 10 games in every year that he's been there. Obviously, he had the struggling years in Pittsburgh, but every year he's had over 200 carries. He's also been a top 10 back. And I don't think a Damian Williams or whoever is behind him, Darrell Williams, is taking carries away from James Conner. And more so, I think the work in the passing game with that offense and what we saw at the end of last year, I think they like him in that role. So I think he touches the ball too much to have a bust season. Could you say he's not an RB1 and say he falls into the RB2 category? Maybe. But again, I'm not looking at it, but I don't know where he's being drafted at, but I'm assuming he's an RB2.
He is being drafted as an RB2 right now. He was being drafted. Let me take a look back at it. In PPR leagues, he is being drafted as the RB16. To me, that's a win. Like, I would say that probably the same argument I had, or not even an argument, the same thing I would say about the James Conners. I don't see that as a bust. Like, I think if you're drafting a guy as the RB 16, 17, a bust, you know how far down he would have to regress to like 6 touchdowns in order for that to happen. I see a fringe RB2, like the best season I see from James Conner this year is that fringe RB2, that 24, 23 types.
That's a significant drop off.
That's what I see. And I see the running backs that are behind him. David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, AJ Dillon, we've talked about, Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins slipping up there.
All those guys before him?
I would take all those guys before James Conner. That's why I think, and that is why I do think he is a bust. I do see the touchdown regression coming. I see a single-digit touchdown season from James Conner in terms of rushing, and then maybe the passing game steps up. But I again, the rushing yards are not. I don't think are going to be there. A bad offensive line.
I think the Cardinals' offense is too good for him not to score enough. Like, I think that's the problem. Is the Cardinals' offense will move the ball because that's what they do. They're good enough, and he is going to be the beneficiary of being around the red zone and scoring touchdowns. That's why he had so many touchdowns last year. I said this about 3 years ago about James Conner to a good friend of mine. I said, I don't think he's a good running back. I don't think he's from a talent perspective, I don't think he's one of the better running backs in football. But he's been productive when he's been put in situations where he's a higher volume guy. That one year in Pittsburgh, he was a super high volume guy. And I think in Arizona, that's what he is. He's a high volume guy because he's on the field and they use him in so many different ways. They get him the ball. So I think in those moments, in those situations, he's really effective. From a fantasy perspective, it's not efficient. It's not great. It doesn't look pretty, but he's usually productive in that aspect. And I think if he drops down to that far, then Arizona went 6-11. I truly believe that.
That would be that would be tough to see. I don't.
It also be
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I can see that type of record from the Arizona Cardinals, but I do see a big step back for James Conner. And again, this is the lazy analyst also is him not playing a full 17, 16, 15 game season. I don't.
Yeah, no running back is.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I didn't want to go. That's why I didn't want to go down that route of saying, oh, he's gonna get hurt. He's not. I mean, that's the thing. He's never been able to stay healthy, even when he was a bell cow or when he was a backup. Like, that's just not the thing for James Conner. But again, I do see the regression coming, and he would be my bust candidate. Aaron, who do you have as your bust?
This is going to anger some people, maybe some people on this show. And I'm talking where they're being drafted at. My bust is Travis Etienne.
No problem here.
I think he is so overdrafted. I think people are expecting something that's not going to be there. And maybe he gets it in the passing game. Maybe he turns in an Alvin Kamara type season because they keep checking down to him or whatever. It can happen. But I watch him run, and there's something I don't see NFL bell cow running back. I don't see the guy that was supposed to be that. And maybe he wasn't supposed to be that. Maybe he is supposed to be Alvin Kamara. I don't know. But when Alvin Kamara came out out of Tennessee, I told people what I saw in him. And I knew what I was going to get from Alvin Kamara. I knew he wasn't going to be a between the tackles runner like that. And so I got what I expected. Etienne, to me, like, I still haven't seen that much in the pass game to where I'm like, oh yeah, that's a dude that's going to do that. I'm worried. Bust for me is, like, again, ADP. And right now he's being taken as running back 19. I don't think he comes anywhere close to the running back 19 this year. I think he's running back 30 or later. And he's been slowly moving down my board. I had him at I think I have him in the 29 or something. I don't know. But he's slowly creeping backwards because the more I watch, the more I dislike it. And so right now, James Robinson comes back, he will be completely off of my radar. If they say tomorrow James Robinson's ready to go and playing, Travis Etienne will be a do not draft at all. Don't put him in your lineup because he won't be worth a hoot. Like, that's how I'll feel about him. But right now, because he's the running back there and he's the only one that's a veteran, or not a veteran, but there, and they're going to give him the ball because James Robinson's not back yet, I'll give him credit. Like, he's going to see production because he's on the field. Yeah. But if James Robinson comes back, give me all the James Robinson shares because I don't think Travis Etienne's it. I just don't. And he's my bust.
I think where did you say Travis Etienne falls back to? What ranking?
He's going to be RB 30 or later. Well, right now I have him at RB 29.
So this is perfect for me because I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you watch a lot more Cowboys games than I do. Tony Pollard, that's what Travis Etienne is going to be, in my opinion. I think that, and you said he's at 29 for you. Tony Pollard right now is being drafted as the RB 31. I would flip flop where Travis Etienne is getting drafted and where James Ross. I would flip flop those two guys. Maybe not that far for Travis Etienne, but James Ross. The news out of Jacksonville, the beat reporters, everything that's coming out, no one is considering James Robinson losing this job as the starting running back. Everyone is considering James Robinson still as that 3-down back, that bell cow back and then Travis Etienne is going to come in on maybe those third down, those pass catching plays. But and we haven't even seen that as that much in preseason or in training camp.
That's what I'm saying.
So it doesn't make that much sense. And and notice when we talked about when I talked about James Conner being a bust, I did not consider throwing in Travis Etienne as a player I would take over James Conner because I do not think that Travis Etienne is I'm 100% on board with you on this because James Robinson's still going to be the 3-down back. He's going to be getting the majority of the carries, and Travis Etienne is going to play that Tony Pollard role where you're going to need him to come in and be explosive every now and then, have him catch some passes, and that's it.
Yeah, I just don't think the touches are there from a fantasy perspective, and I know people want it to be. People want it to be Travis Etienne, and I think that's where you get where the drafting is happening now. But like I said, usually you see something that says, "Oh yeah, the changing of the guard." I mean, we could say it in the Antonio Gibson situation. Let's look at that. You have Brian Robinson. People that are now jumping on Brian Robinson, you can see the changing of the guard, even if it doesn't happen. Like, there's something you're like, okay, they're starting to like. Like, I don't get that feeling in Jacksonville. They're not finding super creative ways to get the ball to Travis Etienne. I'm not seeing that electric guy he's supposed to be. And I'm not saying he's not good. It's just not special. And so if he's not special, then why would you go away from a guy that's been so productive as a James Robinson, who's shown that he can do it over the course of a season? So I just don't trust it. I don't trust it. And I think he's being way overdrafted. If he was being drafted at 35 or whatever, I'd be like, yeah, maybe people are taking flyers, whatever. But RB 19, is a starter, and that's a solid starter, you better know what you're getting. When you're sitting against up next to guys like David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Dillon, guys who have done it. Shit, even Elijah Mitchell and J.K. Dobbins have, Devin Singletary, who proved it last year. Like, all these guys have proven it. How are we going to trust that? And I almost went with another rookie. I almost went Breece Hall there because I'm not sure I'm sold on Breece Hall getting enough volume either to be. But when you start getting to the running back position, it gets watered down in that area. So Breece Hall might get enough touches to be the RB 26 or 27 just because of sheer opportunity. But 19, nope, I can't do it. ETN's my bust.
One last little note on that, just because I enjoy shitting on Travis Etienne. And I want him to be good. As a Jaguars fan, I want him to be good. But again, I want to go back to the training camp and preseason. There's no like buzz around Travis Etienne and the way they're working him in as like this, like the creative schemes to get him involved in the passing game or whatever. Maybe it's because James Robinson hasn't been on the field that as much to be in those roles to take away from his carries. They have to be creative, but you would think there would be something that comes up of Travis Etienne breaks a 85-yard run in preseason or in training camp because they schemed like there's nothing. There's nothing going on.
Where's the explosion?
And it's still James Robinson's team. So, all right. Busts, breakouts, quarterback rankings, all that in one great fantasy show. That does it for another episode of the Fantasy Drive presented by the Sac City Podcast. We'll be back again tomorrow for more season previews. Aaron, get your handy dandy notebook. Who are we covering tomorrow?
Guess who? Great segue. It's the Jaguars, baby. I believe. Let me make sure. It is the Jaguars.
Jaguars and Commanders, baby.
Jaguars and Commanders. We get to talk about the turd himself. We get to talk about Travis Etienne again. We get to talk about James Robinson, Christian Kirk, and then obviously all those turds over with the Washington Commanders and Terry McLaurin because he's not
all those turds.
He's my guy. So we get Jaguars and Commanders tomorrow. Season previews as we head into the regular season. Just a few weeks away, man. Literally a few weeks away.
Yeah.
A few weeks away from regular season kickoff and a few weeks away from the Sac City Fantasy Football League. Would you like to make that announcement here, sir? Or would you like to? We can't push it back anymore. I don't think.
Keep doing this. The Sac City Football League is coming back. This is a inaugural, not non-inaugural season because it's the first season. Sac City.
A re-inaugural.
Yeah,
semi-inaugural season.
We're changing the Sac City Podcast. It's the same league basically. There are going to be some additions, new positions, 2-quarterback league, whatever. We're going to add some positions there. But if you want to be part of our league, we've been trying to find ways on how we want to make people part of our league. Last year we did videos. We don't really have time for videos. We're not going to do videos. I'm just going to make the decision right here. Go into our Sac City Podcast page. Go give us a review of our podcast. Again, and I'll be honest, I don't really care whether it's audio or video. Vinny loves those audio reviews. But if you want to go onto one of our videos and start interacting with guys on there and making comments, I interact on there. Go interact with me. Tell me why you need to be on our fantasy football podcast show league, and maybe we'll let you in. Tell us why you're going to beat me, even though nobody can beat me except for this kid named Bailey. And Bailey, you're already in the league, so don't worry about it. But if you want to be part of our league, it's free to join. Go onto one of our audio platforms, leave a review. That helps us out tremendously. Go onto our YouTube page, interact with the YouTube community, interact with us, YouTube, interact with Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Twat, whatever, all those damn social media platforms. AJ reads, and tell us why you want to be in our league and how you'll dominate. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 7 spots open. It's a 12-team league. We have 7 spots currently open. Yes, Vinny, 7 spots currently open. And they're going to fill fast. So we'll fill them before the draft. Draft will take place the week of the start of the season. It'll be on Sleeper. Again, we'll have all the details. We will have prizes at the end. We have to work out those prizes on what those are going to be. But we will get back to you guys on that. But if you want to join our Fantasy Football League, go and join one of those platforms. Leave us a review. And, we'll debate whether we let you in or not if you're good enough. And we'll post a social media post at some point in time, letting you guys know all those instructions as well. So come and try to dominate me because Bailey took me for all I had last year. So
He did.
But I got more. Let's go. No, Bailey, Bailey, I still owe you. I got some stuff for you, by the way. We got to switch it to Sac City, and it's a work in progress. But you're in the league, man. Just be happy.
Congratulations.
Hey, you could probably take AJ's spot because AJ sucks.
That is also true.
So,
on that note, though, we will be back
was.
tomorrow live at 10 a.m. Eastern time covering the Jaguars and the Commanders. Until then, for my best friend Aaron Meauxiah and for your boy AJ Johnson, I am me. We will see you tomorrow.
you got to hit the gritty on him.
We know we were a much better team than we came up and represented ourselves. That's what we call a sack lunch. Nom 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 nom.